Hello everybody and welcome to A Little Bit of Lip with me. I am Phyllis Founders and I am really excited that you've joined me for another episode of this very unusual, unique, quirky and fabulous show. We are here in the luminous surroundings of the Fox Lighting Department, Fox Studios Australia. So we like to move Elle around, keep it all interesting. And today I'd like you to meet, possibly for the very first time, a world-renowned flaneur. I am going to call you world-renowned.
You shouldn't.
I know, but I already have.
You shouldn't do that.
Well, I've done it. His name is David Duffy, and here he is. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Thank you.
So I have been introduced to you as a flaneur. So
I live with that.
You live with that.
I live with that.
So for the people at home who don't know exactly what the word flaneur is, courtesy of this little contraption. Would you call it a contraption?
I would.
Yeah. Yes.
Very compact contraption.
It is a compact, and there's some alliteration just for the hell of it. Flaneur, a man who saunters around observing society. From the French noun, flaneur, a stroller, a lounger, a saunterer, a loafer, dare I say.
A layabout.
A layabout. Well, I wouldn't call you a layabout,
No,
David.
well, I try not to, but it seems it's a way into the L's, so I thought I'd finish this up.
Sure, and okay, fair enough. And it's the act of strolling. So you do fancy yourself as a bit of a flaneur.
Well, I don't know if I fancy myself, but I probably qualify as a flaneur according to your dictionary definition.
My little contraption.
Your little contraption is very incisive. It cuts right into my soul.
That's deep already.
Oh, thank you so much.
What makes you so interested in the world of flaneurism? Now, I think I just made that up.
Well, life is for living, and this is the letter L we're talking about, and every day is a new adventure, and I like cities and people, and I like crowds. I'm a crowdaholic, and so I go for crowd therapy, and I like cafes, and I like lovely, interesting places with character, and I'm very interested in observing and sometimes even meeting people who are individuals who stand out because of their character.
So dare I say fellow flaneurs?
Fellow flaneurs. Well, they may not be that. They may not answer to that, but they're kindred souls.
Okay.
And when I see a kindred soul, my heart languishes because I think, what a pity I'll never meet that person.
No, I mean, it doesn't seem to me like you're a conformist of any kind. I mean, in terms of you being moulded,
No.
you say.
But
So-
I have been moulded by the people I've known.
Well, we are influenced to a certain extent by the people that we meet and connect with.
Yeah.
So your episode today is hashtag L is for largesse. Great word, amazing word. Why did you choose largesse, Mr. Duffy?
Well, largesse means for me finding something really good where you didn't expect to find it, stumbling on something and thinking, oh, gold. It may not be literally gold, but it's something that I would want to get, which is worth having, which I didn't expect to get, and which I probably don't deserve.
Here's one thing, because we've known each other for a few years. On and off, we've seen each other. I've presented talks.
You have.
I have
and good ones.
Thank you. I appreciate you as part of this organisation that you're involved in, because you're also a talks organiser,
Yeah.
as well as doing some flaneuring on the side.
Unpaid talks organised.
Unpaid, yes.
And my speakers are unpaid too.
Yes, they really were, and they continue to be. I remember I was unpaid.
That's right.
But what struck me when I first met you is, to me, it feels, when I have a conversation with you, it feels like I step back in time a little bit, because you have retained all this, and this is not a reflection of your age, or it's just the way that you carry yourself, and your energy is very old world and very elegant and reminiscent of a bygone era. And I love that about you. And I think what interests me is how someone like you, with your energy and with your fascination for people, which in the age that we're living in, people seem to be more and more dismissive of each other. We're all about phones and technology and distancing ourselves. So someone like you, how do you look at today's world? Is it something that depresses you? Do you despair of how disconnected we've become?
Phyllis,
David.
you're hitting me where I live. I'm a collector of old books. When I was working, I was in the book business. One of my greatest hobbies is reading bound magazines from the Edwardian or late Victorian era. I lapped them up like a big cat. I love these stories. They're by writers who are now largely forgotten or were never even well known then. They're beautiful stories. They're exquisite little cameos of life. This is my little private time machine. And these books are about that thick, and there were stories and articles in those mags, and which would never be written today.
Why?
Because the mores have changed, attitudes have changed, life has changed, the world has changed indescribably much, and those stories are, very evocative of the time and place. And through reading this stuff for half a century, I probably absorbed this by osmosis into the pores of my skin. Now, I just want to tell you one brief little story, which is not a lie, which is the truth. I went to a rebirthing session once years ago.
Did you?
Because I had a crush on the lady.
Well, that's a great excuse to go.
She was an exquisite lady.
Right.
And
I would never have picked you as a rebirther.
No,
is that what they're called?
I wouldn't pick myself as one either.
A flaneur, yes, but
I didn't intend to portray myself as rebirther.
Right.
But I went there, and there were about 17 ladies and about 2 men, which is average New Age ratio, and went through all this stuff. And at the end of it, a smart lady, like herself, she was a businesswoman from Brisbane. There was nothing wafty or New Agey about her. She came up to me, she was only about 35, and she said, "How nice to meet you again." And I said, "But we've never met." "Oh yes," she said, I knew you in the 1880s. And she said this in a matter-of-fact way, like, "Oh, didn't I see you on George Street the other day?" And I said, "Huh?" She said, "I knew you in a previous life," she said, "back in the Victorian era. I know you well." And she said it in such a slap-bang matter-of-fact way that she completely floored me. I had no rebound to that, because she wasn't the kind of wafty dame. She wasn't a crystal-gazing type dame. She was on feet on the ground, a reasonably affluent young businesswoman, and yet she instantly had this flash about me. Well, that's a fact. I don't know who she is or what she's doing today, but that happened.
So when you had that, so did you then go ahead and have that rebirthing experience and uncover? No. Okay.
I'm not a New Ager. I'm not a New Age person. Some of my best friends are, by the way.
The reason why I ask is because I've recently read a book by a very well-known hypnotherapist called Michael Newton, and he's written a book called Journey of Souls, or Soul's Journey, and it chronicles the thousands and thousands of case studies, people that he had in hypnotherapy, and he discovered that he was able to communicate with their souls. Now, it's a very dense book. Sometimes it's quite difficult to read, but if this guy was spinning one gigantic lie, it's incredibly well textured and detailed. So I read it with great interest. So when you say that this woman approached you and said, "It's nice to meet you again."
Nice to meet you again, very matter of fact.
What interests me a lot about that is that in this book it talks about our souls and the soul contracts that we've made with each other before we've come to our next lifetime. And that, I don't know, it resonated with me, and it seemed to help me make sense of a lot of the stuff that I've experienced in my life, and why, for whatever reason, you connect with someone immediately and with a dozen other people you don't.
I noticed that. I mean, some people you meet and they draw things out of you. You find yourself saying the things you wish you had said before, and other people gum you up. They somehow put a wall between yourself and them, and you can't be yourself. It varies from person to person. I mean, it varies. Some people you like very much, and yet you can't communicate with them. There's some sort of barrier. And other people, you didn't think you would, and you do.
So yes, and so I wonder whether that's actually soul chemistry, or whether that's our souls communicating again, whether we're even open to that possibility. And I think a lot of people, particularly with the buzz and the noise of 21st century, we are blind to that. Why is that? Why do you think humanity finds it so hard to be present?
Look, somebody put my back to the wall years ago and said, "What matters?" And I said, only 2 things matter: the quality of your own consciousness and the quality of your relationship with other people, other human beings. Everything else is just traffic. Everything else is just traffic and you know, flim-flam. It doesn't really matter. It's all padding. But the quality of your own mind, your consciousness of being, and your relationship with other human beings, they're the two things which predominantly matter. Now, you described me earlier on as a flaneur. Well, that means I want to sort of smell the roses. I want to wallow around and smell the roses. I don't want to be on a treadmill. I don't want to be on somebody else's treadmill. And I think a lot of people are on treadmills.
But why do you think that is? Is it because we have such a lust for material possessions, so we're doing the work that we don't particularly like to earn the money, to impress people we also don't like?
Yeah, that is true too, but it doesn't apply to everybody. Some people are just caught up in this wheel of fortune, and it isn't their wheel, but they're caught up in it because it's part of the routine of their life. Now, most people communicate most of the time with either friends, family, workmates, or people in the same social métier. You know, most people live a life which is, there's very little private time. There's very little time where they can just be themselves.
Where they can just be.
There's very little time. And when I'm watching the crowd that flows through the Queen Victoria building at rush hour, and I like doing that, when I watch that crowd, I think a lot of those people look as though they're harried, as though they're driven, as though there's some invisible person behind them with a whip,
Right.
driving them. You can't see the whip, but you can see the process of being driven. And I say, wouldn't it be nice to spread out and just be yourself? But it's the frenetic pace of modern life. It's the way it is.
But do you think that some people would prefer that pace? And I know that you and I know these kind of...
But some people do not want to be alone.
Exactly. Because if they stopped and they did just wallow in their own thoughts and emotions...
They hate themselves.
Yes, well, and therein lies the problem. Because these are the kind of people that aren't particularly comfortable with their consciousness, and that's what you touched on earlier. We talked before about the penguin being your spirit animal.
Yeah.
Describe for me again, because just the way that you went into such beautiful detail in the typical Duffy style.
No, it's no typical Duffy
Oh,
style.
but there is.
I love penguins because they're very beautiful and dignified and loyal. They're loyal to their mates.
But there's a sadness there that you...
There's a sadness about them. They live lives of quiet desperation. They're always dressed for dinner. They are beautifully dignified, and they are perpendicular, which is most animals are not. And I relate to them because they're noble. They're just noble. And the doco I saw, made by the French film team, showed them...
March of the Penguins.
March of the Penguins. Beautiful, beautiful doco. I recommend it. And it showed them in their nobility and how they live. So I just love them.
I don't know how you're going to take this exactly, but do you know when I first saw the March of the Penguins? You're going to love this. I was in labour with my first child, and I was sitting in a bath, submerged in some warm water, in agonising pain, and March of the Penguins was playing on a little laptop to try and take my mind. But you know, a whole bunch of animals dressed up in tuxedos waddling around in the Great Antarctic was not that soothing for me. They were very busy. They were very...
Oh, they're busy. They're industrious.
They are very industrious.
Industrious little beasts, but it's their dignity, it's their nobility, and they're just so exceptional.
And unapologetic about...
Unapologetic.
Yeah.
Proud. Very proud.
And that's you, David.
Well, thank you very much for that. I can't live up to them. I just like them.
But you said to me that you relate to the penguin.
Yeah. He is my logo. He is my totem beast. I don't mean beast.
No,
beast, but
it's
you know what I mean.
a feathered friend.
A lovely person, and you know, they, as I said, they spend their lives in quiet desperation because we do. They symbolise us.
How do we spend our lives? I mean, it's clear to me, but just I want to hear it from you. How do you think we spend our lives in quiet desperation? Is it about that speed of living that you talked about?
Most people desperately want to reach something that they haven't reached, and their routine, the treadmill they're on, prevents them from doing that because they're constantly caught up by tiny trivialities which pull them hither and yon, including yours truly.
But you're conscious about it, though. You're very self-aware.
Self-aware of the fact that I haven't got really what I would like.
What's
I've got
that?
some of the things I would like. I mean, to absorb the things, it's a big world out there, and to absorb the things that exist in this world, you don't know whether you're going to come back. You don't know whether you're going to get a second go. You may, but you don't know.
What would you really like, David?
What would I really like?
Yeah.
A time machine.
Where would you go? Because that was my next question.
I'm sure I'm not a total decrier of the 21st century. There's still some beautiful things in the world.
So, but if there is one constant about, say, time in the 1800s versus time in the 21st century, if there's one constant, that would surely have to be for you, people, and how we will be, people are an endless source of fascination.
People are always an endless source of fascination, no matter how fashions change, no matter how the spirit of the age changes. People remain the same, but there is a camouflage business going on in a big way, and there's a lot of there's a sort of power ethic, a sort of unspoken ideology, which sort of dumbs people down into fitting into a kind of mould, and you don't get many people now being prepared to be publicly outrageous.
You don't think? That's what social media is all about.
Oh, but
outrage is the new black. That's all we want to do.
Well, yeah, outrage, but that's all electronic. That's all. People are somehow shielded by this electronic gauze.
Right.
It's not people to people.
Anonymous.
And people even make dates and form relationships by the net. Well, I've got no opinions about that.
I do.
Well, what are your opinions?
I think it's sometimes it can be a recipe for disaster.
Well, I believe so, and I've known friends of mine who found that to be true.
Conversely, though, it could also be a place of magic.
You could find your soulmate.
It could.
Through the net. Anything's possible. I mean, magic is where you find it. So I'm not a total decrier of IT. I'm not decrying IT. I just wish it had happened before I was born or after I was dead.
And you said it right now.
Yeah.
So
we're going through the teething process.
Do you really think so?
Yeah, we're going through...
Of technology?
We're going through the teething process of technology where we aren't totally tuned in to the total exigencies of IT. We're not. We still, our feet and our kneecaps are still in the 20th century, and we haven't totally adapted it. Well, maybe people who are born with it have adapted. I mean, nowadays you see 4-year-old kids with
Absolutely.
mobiles. But, okay, they won't have any trouble. And, of course, if I'd been in that generation, well, that'd be a different ball game. On the other hand, if it had happened after I was dead, that'd be happy too.
So let's throw in love into the mix.
Yes.
So when you talk about how disconnected we are as a world, do you think that people are more apologetic about love and feeling love and expressing love than they were perhaps 100 years ago? Because you talk about time past as being...
I can't say that people were more spontaneous then. There were conventions which were very real, which inhibited people.
Absolutely.
Maybe more so than today. When I was talking about people being more outrageous and spontaneous, I wasn't thinking so much of intimate human relationships. I mean, in that regard, people were more formalistic, much more formalistic and moralistic.
Repressed as well.
And hypocritical,
yes.
too. A lot of hypocrisy existed in those days, which fortunately has been done away with. There's a hell of a lot of hypocrisy.
But have we gone to the other extreme, though?
Yeah, we have, yeah. We've gone... I mean, there was a 19th century philosopher who said the suppression of any evil is commonly followed by a temporary sense of the opposite evil. In other words, the swing of the pendulum. The pendulum always swings too far. It swings too far. That's the drumbeat of history. The pendulum has swung too far in one particular direction. I'm an unabashed traditionalist, but I'm not a stodge.
No, I kind of get that about you, Dave. So here's my question, because I think we're going to be watched by younger people, possibly even millennials.
Oh God.
So,
okay.
I find you to be quite wise and stimulating and highly entertaining, and I'm really jealous of your vocab. So when I hear you do have a vocab. So
I just have a lip.
You come to the right place.
I come to the right place. Yeah, well, what do you know?
So when I hear all these fantastic phrases fly out of your mouth, so what was that one he said? I should write that down.
So I don't have a Boswell.
What's a Boswell?
Or, you know, a biographer who's always at your elbow.
Right, fair enough. So my question to you is this. What could you say, because I think people would look at you sitting here with your lovely flyaway hair and your overgrown eyebrows and your tie and your double-breasted jacket with the gold buttons that have been replaced.
As a relic.
Well, not my word, but yours.
Yes, I know, but I thought I'd throw it in.
Well,
I thought you could mull it around.
Well, I was going to be more complimentary, like I was going to say a sage-like presence.
Oh, no, I can't
No,
live up to
you
it.
can't live up.
Can't live up
So people would look at you and reach their own conclusions. But what I think you've done here today is explode a lot of these preconceptions. What would you say to the millennial watching here about, what advice would you give them about life?
You only have one life, so follow your star. If you believe that you should live a certain way and you seek a certain lifestyle or destiny, have the courage of your convictions and go for it, because you may not get another chance.
That's beautiful. Did I put you on the spot?
Yes, I like being put on the spot. Yeah.
Have you ever fallen in love?
Yes, probably. I'm in my second childhood, so that's a condition that I'm still, you know, subject to.
Is it an altered state that you'd rather just do away with?
No. I am an emotional being. I love beautiful people. It isn't always reciprocated, but who the hell? I love you. I love
I
beautiful.
love you. I
Well-
think you're beautiful.
Well, thank you, dear, for that. But I hope it won't be held against you. But I hope, in the discernment stakes, they're not going to, chalk you down too low for having confidence in such as I. But thank you for that anyway. But you asked me to say what I would say to millennials, and that is what I would say. Unapologetically, I have, in many ways, not had the courage of my convictions. I haven't gone for what I really believed in, and that has been my main failing.
What's one thing that you wish you could have changed about your life?
Well, look, there were several, Phyllis, and it maybe isn't appropriate for me to talk about them all. None of them are detrimental. None of them would involve me in illegalities or immoralities.
Well, that's a relief.
Well, one of the things I wish I'd done was probably would have wished to have married the person who wanted to marry me, who's now long gone. And that is, I've had many friends, and some of them have expressed a warm affection for me. They have. You can even use the L word if you want to. But that was the death of this particular lady, which happened 29 years ago, was the only thing where I have ever felt genuine grief, as it is supposed to be felt, insofar as I felt I'd lost part of myself. And I used to have dreams about her, and I used to look in shop windows and think, oh, she'd like that, and then remembered that, oh, she's gone, I can't give it to her. And then we experienced the same thing, we did the same things, and she had a lovely memory, she could remember things better than me, and I would say, I must ask her about that, and then I suddenly remembered that I couldn't ask her anymore, because this barrier called death, and that's a regret I have, that had I chosen her as a companion full time, she might have lived, because where she was living may not have suited her. So that's a regret. You ask for a regret. That is one which I will share with you. But there are other regrets, but I will forget about them. They're not important. I made mistakes. But the mistakes I've made have mainly been of omission, not commission. Things I haven't done and haven't said, I regret. Not the things I've said.
Well, I wonder, you floored me. I appreciate you sharing that with me, because I could see, I could sense the sadness, and I could sense, the regret.
It was very real. I used to dream about her. I used to dream about her on a regular basis. I did, for a long time.
And what reasons did you give to her for not wanting to be with her?
Oh, I didn't give her reasons. We went out together, but it was intimated to me that she would like to have done this, and she was a timid soul, very timid and gentle person who, wouldn't say boot or goose, and that was part of her charm, and among my friends, everyone was very fond of her. And then suddenly she went, very suddenly.
Do you think that you would have liked to have started a family with her?
Well, who knows? Who knows, Phyllis? It's a long time ago. It's back in the late 70s and early 80s we're talking about. You know, she certainly was a very maternal person. She loved children, and you know, she indicated that that wasn't, you know, that was part of her persona, etc. It's just a sad thing. I mean, I'm sharing with you something I don't often share, but you asked me, so I'm telling you.
I appreciate it. Oh.
That's okay. And all my friends used to say things about me in regard to her, and one of them said, "You're crying for the moon, but you have the moon in your lap," and that kind of thing. My friends are very perceptive of me, and I thank them for the support that they gave me. But this is ancient history, by the way. Most of the people I know now were not around then.
Well, for ancient history to have the impact that it should have, we should learn from it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, undoubtedly. Absolutely. But you asked me about a mistake, so I've shared one with you, as I see it.
So do you think that experience, and was certainly a very deep emotional experience for you, has that informed the way you live today?
Well, it's informed me that, to the fact that if you meet someone whom you think is really worthwhile, you shouldn't undervalue them. You should value them for what they have to offer you. And, you know, the older I get, the harder that becomes to be a reality, because it's a young person's world. But nonetheless, we older people are still human, very much so. We're human. And I know a lot of people in my age group, or older, who are quite young in their attitude. You'd be surprised.
How old are you, David?
Oh, I don't talk about that. I never talk about that. I'm as old as you want to make me.
Okay. I've been told. Can you move a little bit closer to me?
Yes, of course.
Because I think
I'm falling off the edge of the world.
Yeah, I don't know why you're doing that. Do you not like my fragrance? I don't understand.
No, well, it's not that I'm respecting your territory.
Oh, this is everything. Right. Everything is all open. All right. Come a little bit closer.
The same lips.
Yes, we are. We are
sharing.
Lips. Elle prefers it when we're closer together. Elle has her own energy.
My God, she does too.
Doesn't she?
She's totally enveloping. You know, she's in danger of chewing me up and spitting me out.
She would never spit you out.
She would.
But you see, people find that when they meet Elle or when they sit with me, the energy here is such that you just want to talk.
Well, the next person who talks to you on Elle might be too enveloping, might be the opposite to me, might be the kind of person you'd like to give a bit of time.
Well, then that's my skill then, to just create a barrier. But this is not about creating barriers.
No. I'm sorry, I was edging off the edge there.
But that's okay. I didn't want you to fall off.
No, well, if I'd done that, you could have turned it into slapstick.
Yes, and then that would have been a whole other kind of show. But I want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for saying yes to coming on the show and to just sharing your world and your wisdom and words like flaneur. I will use that because
I'll try to be one.
I think you already are an accomplished flaneur. That's what I aspire to be now. I aspire to be a flaneur like you.
Well, congratulations on the beginning of your new career.
Thank you so much. I want to say that I hope you enjoyed this episode of A Little Bit of Lip. We've had a lot of lip today from you,
mostly
David.
From me.
Yes, so much.
I'm lipped over.
And I'm lipped out. And if you do have any feedback on the inimitable, there's a word for it, the inimitable David Duffy, please write to me at PO Box 713, Kensington, New South Wales, Australia. I don't want emails, tweets, none of that. We are taking it back. We're going vintage. Vintage is the way to go. That's a V word. The L word is L is for largesse, and I think
it's been a largesse having this powwow with you.
It really has been.
Been a largesse.
Yes, it has been. I feel very blessed.
There's gold and then there hills.
There is, and gold in this here pair of lips. Goodbye, everybody. See you, David. You can say goodbye if you want to.
Cheers. Ciao.